Welcome to our viewers on Globespan 24/7 as we come to you live from New York and in Guyana on this beautiful spring evening here in New York. The weather is amazingly beautiful today. Yesterday was like a heat wave, but today it has been much more soother than yesterday. So we want to thank you, our viewers, for joining us. And for those who have problems joining us, please go to Globespan 24/7 on YouTube or on Facebook, and you can link to the live program. We want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course, the Lekram Ramprasad, our technical specialist. With me, of course, is my co-host, Dr. Rose, and this evening we want to welcome, for the first time in our program, the President for the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Timothy Tucker. Mr. Tucker, welcome to the program tonight.
Oh, thank you very much.
And we're so glad that you're here. And Dr. Rose, my co-host, welcome again.
Welcome to Globespan, the only fair and balanced network in Guyana.
Well, we are told we are fair and balanced, but sometimes on the political realm, they think we're taking sides, and I hope we are not taking sides. But Mr. Tucker, before we start, most Guyanese might not be, you're not as to the public eye as many of the other persons in Guyana, even though you contribute significantly to Guyana's development. Can you tell us something about yourself in terms of what you did in the past? And we know now you're the president of the chamber.
All right. Well, like I say, good night to all your viewers. Thank you both, Dr. Rose and Mr. Sugrim, for having me on. And yes, my name is Timothy Tucker. I'm the current president of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. I'm now in my second year as president. Previously, I would have held the position of senior vice president for 2 years. And before that, junior vice president for 2 years as well. So I've been at the helm of the Gcci for 5.5 years. I was also on the council of the chamber before that. I chaired the Trade and Investment Committee for the chamber for 4 years. I'm in my private capacity. I am the CEO of Ridopest Inc., a pest control company, which is a family-owned business. My brother and I are the owners of that business. It was we are second generation. My father started that business in 1983. So we're 39 years just last week. I also, my brother and I founded Sandip Waste Management Solutions. So I've been in the business about 27 years. I've been in business. I've lived my entire life in Guyana. I've worked in the field, in the office, all aspects of it. I've mixed and meddled within the business community in Guyana, the length and breadth of Guyana. And of course, from the GCCI standpoint, I've worked from member, councillor, through the executive of the chamber.
Okay, thank you. I know in Guyana, Mr. Tucker, we have the Private Sector Commission, we have the Guyana Manufacturing Association, we have the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, and also we have other Chamber of Commerce across the length and breadth of Guyana. Can you tell our audience what is the role and responsibility, or what does the GCCI does that the private sector does not do, and the Manufacturing Association? Are there roles interlinked somewhere?
So the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry is your oldest, right, and largest business support body in Guyana. We were created in 1889 via an act of parliament. So unlike any other association in the country, we were incorporated via an act of parliament. And of course, the reason why we have the name Georgetown Chamber of Commerce is because in 1889, right, there was no Guyana. Georgetown was your epicenter of commerce. All of the businesses and everything were functioning and focused on Georgetown. And in actual fact, the GCCI was created back in about 1840, but we were incorporated via the Act of Parliament because that was the only mechanism at that time to form a non-for-profit organization. So we are non-for-profit. In the Constitution, Act, Chapter 8903 is the GCCI's Act, which stipulates what the chamber shall and its mandate. It also indicates who makes up the executive of the chamber and who makes up the council. The council is made up of a 21-person council, member council. So that council is elected annually at our annual general meeting from within its membership through a nomination period and an electoral period. And then when that council is elected from the membership, that council now in turns elect the executive management committee of the chamber, which makes up about 5 executives. So there's their president, the senior junior vice president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Now the GCCI is, as it says, is a chamber of commerce and industry. It deals with the business. It deals with the, our mandate is to promote, advocate, mediate for businesses in the country, all sectors of businesses. So within our chamber, we have 12 subcommittees that deal with various things. We have a trade and investment subcommittee. We have security and governance, membership, fundraising. It goes down agriculture, petroleum, green economy, construction, HSSE, and it goes on. Everything is driven by membership. At present, we are 620 members. Those, as I said, all the committees are manned and run. We are all volunteer, but we also, from the membership, we have a secretariat. That secretariat is professionally manned via an executive director. It has staff that deals with economics, with trade, with membership concerns. And our mandate says that we play the role that businesses if they have an issue and they raise their issue within one of our subcommittees, they can in turn raise it with government. So we are the mediators. We can facilitate with different agencies to resolve problems, to advocate for solutions, and we can even, and years ago, we wrote and submitted legislations to Parliament, and that was in the 1940s, 1950s, and beyond, even in the 70s. So the GCCI is that business support organization. We also mentor, we do trade missions, we welcome trade missions, we facilitate business-to-business meetings, we organize networking events for membership and of course for those networks that are coming from overseas. So we have memorandum of understanding with the Cuban Chamber of Commerce, with the Aberdeen and Grampian Chamber of Commerce, with Indian Chamber of Commerce. We have 2 associations out of Canada that we have MOUs with. We have a tripartite MOU with Barbados, Suriname. We also have our executive director sits on CARICHAM, which is the network of Caribbean Chambers of Commerces. And of course, so we have a number of areas where we network and grow our business. We do outbound trade missions, trade promotions to push for our membership. So that is, in a nutshell, is what the GCCI does. Apart from that, what the Private Sector Commission, to answer the other part of your question, is an umbrella body. The Private Sector Commission was created because you had a number. There are numerous amount of associations across Guyana. We have the Rupununi Region 2, Region 3 Chamber of Commerces, Linden, Bartica. We have Region 5. You get the Manufacturing Association, Forestry Producers, Shippers. So they're about, in the makeup of the Private Sector Commission, there are 23 sectorial bodies that make up the Private Sector Commission. The presidents or the heads or a nominated person from each of those associations sit on the council of the Private Sector Commission. So those are your 23 representatives. Now, the Private Sector Commission, 30% of the membership of the council, so whatever your sectorial bodies that make up, that sit in the commission, at this point they're 23, 30% of that is the number of corporate persons that sit on the commission, and that is done through an election process for them. To be a corporate member of the Private Sector Commission, you have to be part of two sectorial bodies. So for instance, you can say a company like Banks DIH, they are a member of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, and they are a member of the Manufacturing Association, and they're also, so they open automatic, well, they use that to apply and gain entry to the Private Sector Commission. So the Private Sector Commission covers all of your sectorial bodies. So we have sitting on the commission, as I said, Linden Chamber of Commerce President and so forth. The Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association, general services was added later on. Originally, they were basically for the manufacturers, because sometimes the needs of the manufacturers are different from the needs of the entire business community. Manufacturers need a certain amount of leverage, a certain amount of protection, and a certain amount of advocacy and support. So they felt that they needed to be together. Whereas, because sometimes we're going at different needs, the needs of the importers and the needs of the exporters are completely different needs. So the manufacturers felt that they needed to be together in terms of it. And that's generally seen most places around the world. So that is in a nutshell what the three organizations kind of
very well explained, Mr. Tucker. And there's a lot of synergies between and among the organization to kind of cement and support each other.
And I think that's fundamentally why the Private Sector Commission was birthed, because you had the manufacturers, you had the Quarantine Chamber of Commerce and the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, and so going after the same thing, but they're going after different times at different angles. So the idea was to put everybody at one table, so collectively we can have cross-cutting issues. Now, each of us will deal with our individual member issues by ourselves. You know, from the GCCI standpoint, we have working relationships with the Guyana Revenue Authority, the Food and Drug Department, the Pesticide Board, and various other organizations and governmental agencies. So when a particular member has an issue, we can address those issues directly on behalf of our members.
And not necessarily through the private sector or the manufacturing body.
No, we don't need to, because of course, neither do they need to. But generally, member issues will be dealt with from us, those smaller associations. When we need to lobby for policy changes and cross-cutting issues, then we use the Private Sector Commission as the umbrella body, because then you'll have myself and all the other regional chambers agreeing that this is the way that we want to tackle something collectively.
Okay. The Georgetown Chamber of Commerce said it was an act of parliament in 1889. Yeah. The other private sector, the other Chamber of Commerce across the country, like you have the Corriverton one, you have the New Amsterdam, as you said, Bartica, and other parts of the country. Are they also incorporating the act, or they just form as a group like everybody else?
They're formed, a lot of them are formed through the Friendly Society Act. Only the GCCI is formed by the Act of Parliament.
Okay. Is there any link between or collaboration between the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and the other chambers across the country?
Yeah, we have a very good working relationship with all the chambers of commerce. Sometimes what happens is the president of the Region 3 Chamber of Commerce is a member of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. So you'd have situations like that. You know, the GCCI simply, the same act says we are Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, but notwithstanding that, we can be called whatever we choose to call ourselves. So a lot of the time we are referred to as the Guyana Chamber of Commerce because of the broadness of our act.
Okay, audience, as you would hear in the background, there is the cart passing my place. So I'll hand over to Dr. Rose and I'll mute myself.
Good night again, Mr. Timothy Tucker. You did mention that the organizations. Now, how many organizations or businesses are within the GCCI?
620 businesses. And it cuts four categories of businesses. So we have micro businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large businesses. The micro and small businesses make up about 44% of our membership. And of course, the rest are our medium and large businesses. So you'd have generally in our membership, we have from small graphic designers, or even we have some small snackets, catering places, all the way up to, your banks, DIH, ExxonMobil, Schlumberger, that sort of thing.
So, but representation is based on what? The fees based on the size of the business?
Yes. We so maybe this was back maybe around in the early 2000s, I believe. The then president of the chamber, because you only could have, there was one membership fee prior to maybe 2000 or in the 90s, which was for the one category of membership, one fee. It was realized back then that it locked out a lot of people from representation. So the then executive took a decision to create 4 categories of membership. Those categories of membership is determined by the membership officer based on the information submitted on their application when they're applying. Our applications are done online via our website. It's open to any business that is registered in Guyana, and we even have a non-resident membership category. So even if you're not a registered business in Guyana and you're a registered business in the United States, but you want to be part, or any part of the world, and you want to be part of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, you can be. It has some restrictions if you're a non-resident member, meaning that you don't have voting rights and you don't have access to some things, but generally you'd have access to information, access to the membership. You can reach out to get some support. You get support from the chamber and things like that. So the membership is from $12,000 for your micro businesses, 12, 25, 50, 100,000. So the membership is pretty small. It's not a big membership fee.
And I know this is your second term. A president and executives are elected for how long? 2 years?
So you're elected for a 1-year term.
Okay.
And you cannot serve none of the executives can serve in a position for more than 2 consecutive terms. So that was put in ironically by Captain Gavallo when he was president of the chamber. He changed the constitution to limit a president to only 2 consecutive terms.
So you have terminated, but can a president change the constitution by himself?
He didn't change the constitution by himself. He had to go to an annual general meeting. There's a process where 14 days before the general meeting, you'd have to submit your change. It goes to the AGM. The AGM will be voted on in the AGM, and that was changed. We just at our last AGM, I put forward a resolution that only a Guyanese citizen can be the president of the chamber. That was adopted at our last AGM, and now that is part of our constitution, our bylaws, I should say, not our constitution. Any changes in the constitution of the chamber has to go to Parliament.
So after this, your second term, you can't run for a third term. You can't seek a third term.
I can seek a third consecutive term. I can come back later on in my life, but with this type of work, nobody ever comes back.
Okay. Now, being the president for the past year.
But a year and a half now, sir. Go ahead.
Year and a half. Can you tell our listeners if you've been called upon to represent any of the businesses, and in what capacity?
We've been called to represent businesses in several areas. Of course, we have been asked to deal with issues with Go Invest, issues with permits, planning, GRA, Food and Drug, Pesticide Board. We have been asked to deal with different issues with ministries, representation of the local content, Ministry of Natural Resources, GGMC. Through the work, the Guyana Police Force, we have dealt with Guyana Power and Light. We've dealt with issues with the Electrical Department, Ministry of Public Works. And you got to understand that these are issues that come to us, but most of them are resolved very quickly because we have established and working relationships with all of those institutions that I would have called before. So it's a case where some of these institutions, we have quarterly meetings. We have sometimes more regularly meetings with those, with those institutions and governmental agencies. We just signed an MOU with the Guyana Police Force. We established a good working relationship. We have donated to the police force. We are working with Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. So we do our CSR. We work with various organizations, different ministries, Human Services and Social Security, Ministry of Education. So the list goes on. The chamber is quite active. The University of Guyana, we signed the MOU with. We're creating short courses, trying to create short courses for the business community. So because a lot of business people don't have that the leisure, or sometimes it's difficult for us to start back school. So we're trying to create short courses that really helps to boost the local private sector, build up the educational capacity of some of our small business owners. So we have several things like that we do. We work with, I know there's a couple of programs we're going to push with School of the Nations. So a lot of work is being done.
Okay. Now, the nature of politics in Guyana is, and I quote George Bush, either you're with us or you're against us. Is the GCCI with the government, against the government, with the opposition, or against the opposition?
The GCCI is supportive of whichever government that does the work that the private sector want. The direction of the GCCI, the direction of the country is any government that supports the private sector being the engine of growth in Guyana, the chamber supports. So whatever is being done, you understand, we are a business lobbying advocacy group, right, that pushes, right, for the betterment of the business community. So anything that improves, or any body, any association, anything that helps the business community, we are supportive of. We are apolitical. So today you might think, today I could say something. I remember 2 days ago I said something, it looked like I was anti-government. I said something yesterday, it looks like I'm government support, right? So in Guyana, and as you said, George Bush said, you're either for or against us. So today I'm for, tomorrow I'm against. So whatever is good for the business community is going to be good for us.
Okay. You said the GCCI is apolitical. And for the GCCI is called, it means the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. What role is the GCCI playing in shaping the country's development prospects, if any?
The Georgetown Chamber, to shape our development, the chamber is supportive and of course is working on building capacity in terms of our membership. As I would have said to you just now, we're looking to build small, because you understand this, you cannot build the country unless you build small, micro, and medium enterprises. That's what grows the economy. That's what grows any economy. And of course, whatever role is required by the chamber, and as I said, there are multiple. The chamber has 12 moving parts. Those are the 12 subcommittees. each of them, whatever is working to grow them, and we of course work, or we have an entrepreneur and small business committee, which just ran off a National Small Business Week, right? And that was to showcase the small businesses within our membership. That was also to, we had webinars with them, which we were training them on, marketing, on various strategies. So our role is to support and build businesses. And we also, back in 2018, as chair of the Trade and Investment Committee, that committee came up with a business development forum, which we kicked off then, which basically was building out a roadmap to boost businesses. And that was a well-run forum, which we saw hundreds of businesses participating. And then we repeated it in 2019. And of course, COVID came and we were unable to do so. But 2018, we had about 30 something speakers, including academia, including institutions, and of course, including role models, because we also have to tell the story of how some of our businessmen, our entrepreneurs have done it, and they were able to tell businesses in their categories. So we had persons in small businesses that had small business success stories that were able to tell their story, how they did it. We had medium-sized businesses, and of course, we had large businesses telling their story. And of course, that is the nature of our role, is to really support businesses and get them built out. We have been lobbying. We've lobbied since 2017. We started to lobby for local content because we believe local content was one of the things that would really help, give an adrenaline shot to the private sector and give us the chance to participate in an industry that we had no clue about. And then after that, of course, we are lobbying presently for better access to finance. So that's something high on our agenda. Trade barriers we've been fighting for, because we believe the removal of the non-tariff barriers is important when it comes to boosting the farmers. Of course, at the current costs of electricity, that's why you don't have a lot of value added. But if we have markets that are open up, that are available to us, we can boost farming. And then when we are able to lower the cost of electricity, then we can boost manufacturing with the same supplies that we have now lifted because of reopening removal of the non-tariff barriers. So we believe in a real growth. We believe that infrastructure growth, the spending that the government is undertaking in infrastructure, is a shot in the arm for the private sector. It's boosting the economy tremendously, and it's growing businesses and creating a lot of entrepreneurs.
You said yesterday that you issued a statement, and it looks as though you're against the government.
No, I think.
And today you issued another statement.
Yesterday's statement is one that we supported the government signing the MOU with Trinidad
to remove the non-tariffs.
Yes.
Between Trinidad. Yeah.
Right.
But the day before, you said that it has to be removed, or else the government should not sign the MOU.
2 days before, correct.
2 days before.
Right.
So it looks as though one time you were against, another time you're for.
Yeah.
Now, given that, as president, have you ever received any pushback from the politicians on either side of the aisle on the direction or concerning direction of the GCCI or the stance taken by the GCCI?
I think that I have never really personally had any pushback. I think that the pure size of the GCCI and the diversity of the GCCI, most politicians realize the role that the difficult role that I face and any president of the chamber face, because it is not to say that we are one-sided. Today a president is forced from the chamber because I'm led by the need of my membership. So the direction on which, or the statement that I make, is not one purely from off the cuff, right? If I need to say something off the cuff, I go to my personal Facebook page. But when it's done via the chamber, it is always approved by the council of the chamber. So those directions is actually the litmus test is done. I chair, or I should say, for the last 5 years, the president of the chamber chairs the Advocacy, Business and Economic Affairs Committee. So when advocacy needs to be made, it's done via that committee. What I did when I became president of the chamber is that I made it compulsory for the executive of the chamber to sit in that committee as well. So when advocacy issues come up from the membership, we can make a decision right then and there whether the direction that we're going to take it. So that's some of the things that we've done to deal with it. We've seen, many issues, and we've also made many statements.
Public policy engulfs everyone's life in Guyana, and it comes from the government. What influence GCCI has on the making of public policy?
The GCCI, when invited, we would have a solid input. I must say that the government usually invites us. This government has been very inviting for the chamber. We were invited previously, but not as much as we are now. And of course, those are the bones of contention that we have previously. I can say that we had some ministers during the previous government that were very friendly and open to recommendations of the chamber. And of course, there were some that refused to meet the GCCI, unfortunately. But, that's the nature of the business that we're in.
Charles?
Mr. Tucker, you mentioned not too long ago that initially you were against the MOU from Trinidad, and you agree, now you accepted it. In politics, it's called flip-flop. Why did you change your position?
I didn't change my position. What I said, right, was that you cannot sign an MOU unless the non-tariff barriers are dealt with or removed, right? It was indicated to me, right, that the non-tariff barriers, right, listen, we made this statement in 2018. We made this statement again in 2022. It's the same statement. I can send you both, because I pushed for that statement in 2018, and I pushed for that statement this time. And what was said to us is the non-tariff barriers will be now added as a line item in the MOU to be dealt with. And because of that, the chamber is supportive of that, because you have now put a mechanism in place to deal with it directly. Last time we were dragged over the coals and tongue lashed by the then Foreign Affairs Minister, and I said to him, Minister, your data doesn't support your argument. The data that the Bureau of Standards have clearly states that the trade relation is one-sided. 500 and something million US dollars worth of goods annually coming into Guyana, and which represents 20-something% of our imports, and on our export side, 1.6% is exported to Trinidad. It actually, I had to go and do further research to get that number, because it wasn't even a line item on the export sheet of the Bureau of Statistics. It was actually in others.
Okay, I don't know, you're referring to Carl Greenwich, right? Because
yes.
here in New York, we are asking that question. I actually asked him the question about the MOU, and he said, well, it's only a memorandum of understanding, it's not a contract. But I'm glad you pointed that out, because within the framework of the MOU are things to be done. But bearing in mind that Trinidad has a very low electricity rate, so their manufacturing sector is very competitive to ours. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, but you looked at the non-tariff barriers don't really have anything that deals with our manufacturing sector. The non-tariff barriers that we have that have been identified, there are about 13 of them. And the last time we issued a statement, and actually they said they would have reviewed it. And then 2020, I think it was 2020 or no, last year, 2021, 2 items were fixed. Right after we started to raise the issue, they fixed 2 items. our lobbying, and I can tell you this, I was assured, I met the foreign minister of Trinidad and Tobago, who assured me that they are agreeing to tackle the non-tariff barriers in the MOU, and that was the assurance, and that led to the issue the statement. When we listened to the press conference, and we heard, I mean, either way, the government signed the MOU. Like the previous government, they went ahead and signed the MOU. But the good thing is, and why they got our support on it, is because they address the issues or concerns. They listen to us. And I appreciate them taking, I mean, they don't have to listen to us, but they did.
Well, except Trinidad, is there any other CARICOM country that is treating us the way Trinidad used to treat us in terms of dumping us with their product, but not accepting ours?
You've raised a point that Trinidad is cheaper, and they have now do the most manufacturing, so they have a lot of things. I don't know if they're dumping. That's up for the anti-dumping the anti-dumping laws to fix up. So I can't say that Trinidad is dumping anything on us, but I can say that their cost of manufacturing is very low. Jamaica is very low as well. Listen, we don't have. It's not only Trinidad we have non-tariff barriers with. We have non-tariff barriers with plenty with other Caribbean countries. We have the most with Trinidad.
Okay.
All of them are listed. We're dealing with a lot of them, but some of the ones that in Trinidad are ridiculous. I mean, if you look at it, so Trinidad previously were importing pineapple from Puerto Rico with their crowns on. They refused to accept pineapples from Guyana with the crowns on. You have to decrown the pineapple. You and I know if you take off the crown of a pineapple, it spoils very fast. They wanted us to destem peppers. You know what it is to destem 100 pounds of wiri pepper, right? They wanted us to fumigate produce with methyl bromide, which Trinidad and Guyana signed the Montreal Protocol, right, on the reduction and removal of ozone depleting substances, which methyl bromide is. Methyl bromide is a restricted use chemical, so we couldn't use it. They also instituted a duck ban based on a suspected case, right, of a disease, never proven. It went to testing, it was inconclusive. They've never proved it. And of course, they import duck from countries that have proven cases of that same disease.
Well, Mr. Tucker, why do you think that was happening? I mean, is our private sector was not robust enough, or what? Why did that happen?
Those things accumulated over the years. These are a number of things listen, I'm not the only private sector person that has been fighting for this. I am now making my voice heard in the situation. These battles have been fighting. You see, because these battles have been fighting by the exporters of produce, right? And this is something that the manufacturers fighting. You have persons like Ramesh Duku, who's been there for years fighting these same battles from the Manufacturers Association. Now, you also have our farmers. Now, how the chamber got into this? I mean, let me get this straight, because you had a past president of the chamber, Mr. Lance Hines, who were fighting a lot of these battles before, right? But they were fighting these things at nascent meetings, at food and at foreign affairs, through the channels, through the correct channels. Guyana's always gone through the correct channels. Now, the lack of finances by the local private sector to take Trinidad to the CCJ, right, because it's very costly to go to the CCJ, is what Hamburg does. We could have gone to the CCJ on a lot of these issues. And then there's also a reluctancy by governments before, foreign affairs ministers, to think they were fighting it through the diplomatic channels. I have taken a stance to fight it in the public domain, because at the end of the day, right, who purchases the products?
Because I was told, I don't know if it's correct or not, but they were importing sugar out of Guatemala, which is outside of CARICOM, and refusing to take Guyana sugar, but that's a different
Yeah, well, that's a Belize battle. Belize took them to court. The
Belize
honey,
won. Yeah.
yeah, the honey issue is not a Guyana issue. It's a Grenadian issue. The Grenadians have been fighting, and COTED and CARICOM had instructed Trinidad to change their law which is a non-tariff barrier, and is one that's on their books since 1930 something. Now, you're going to the honey issue. We took up the fight, and the reason why that's what led to all of this. That's what led to me investigating all of the non-tariff barriers, and simply because the GCCI, I think it was back in late 2016, early 2017, had gotten funding from the Caribbean Development Bank through a CTCS project, and we had done a beekeeping course where we brought in beekeepers, expert beekeepers, and trained 40 Guyanese from various parts of Guyana through the regions of Guyana, and we trained them in beekeeping. We brought them up to up to standard. They were able to learn. They had hives and everything. And so when I became chair of the T&I committee, I called them in for a meeting, and I said, listen, so how are we going to make this now a monetary thing? How are we going to improve you and so on? And where was the prospects of export? And then they brought it to my attention that we can't. And the thing is, back then, they said to me, listen, a gallon of honey in Guyana was $16,000 a gallon, 16,000 Guyana dollars a gallon. They could have gotten $36,000 a gallon for the same gallon of honey in Barbados. But they couldn't get to Barbados, right? Because by freight, by sea, because of Trinidad not wanting, you can't even pass within their territorial waters with honey. If it's on a manifest, that's a fine for the shipping company. And Leparcan had gotten $5,000 fine, and the honey had gotten confiscated and destroyed previously. So those are the issues that you've been facing.
Very, very sad. Mr. Tucker, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we want you to talk about the success stories of GCCI and what you have done to enhance your membership. When we come back, we'll discuss that. We'll take a short commercial break.
Guyana independence is in May, and Travelspan has the cheapest fares. Fly with non-stop and direct flights to Guyana on American, JetBlue, or Caribbean Airlines. Fares start from $185 one-way and $414 round-trip to Guyana. And from Guyana, one-way fares start from $251 and round-trip from $456. These are non-stop and direct flights to and from Guyana. Call Travelspan for these cheap fares. In the U.S., call 718-845-0437. In Georgetown and West Coast Demerara, call 227-1701. And in Berbice, call 337-4287. Travelspan is serving the community for over 27 years, with offices in Queens, Georgetown, Berbice, West Coast Demerara, and Trinidad. When you purchase at one office, you can reconfirm your flight at any other Travelspan office for all your convenience. Call Travelspan today and book your flights now.
Is when this wedding got done? Right now my belly burning for the 7 curry. But them fancy people just call it vegetarian food. I just call it 7 curry.
Order your 7 curry or vegetarian box today from allfromonesupplier.com and get free shipping throughout the U.S. The 2022 competition is in Cancun on July 28th to August 1st. Who is going? The duck and the curry going for sure, plus Raymond Ramnarine, Terry G, young upcoming dancer, and singer Ariana, Randy Reckless, and the Reckless Tassa Group. The competition for the best tasting duck is in Cancun for 2022. Friends and families, make this a reunion.
Break it down, dee 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 down, dee down ding. Break it, dig it, dig it, dee down, dee down ding. Break it down, dee 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 down, dee down ding. Hey yo, my sweetheart, say I'm addicted to you.
Family and friends meet up in Cancun on July 28th. Enjoy your culture, your music, and your duck. For more info, call Globespan at 212-243-0865. That is 212-243-0865. In Canada, call 647-557-62200. In Trinidad, call Emeralds at 645-1604. And in Guyana, 227-1701, or visit us at travelspan.com.
जन्म जन्म का साथ है तुम्हारा हमारा.
Bollywood on the Beach is a family and friends event with Bollywood Entertainment. July 14th to the 18th, enjoy a 5 days and 4 nights all-inclusive vacation with your family and friends and your culture. Performers from India, Pakistan, Trinidad and Guyana will be live at the resorts with your favorite Bollywood songs. In Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, stay in the family section or in the adults-only section and enjoy over 12 restaurants, 11 bars, 7 pools, play areas, spas, and exclusive beach area. Your all-inclusive Bollywood on the Beach vacation is from $1,095 per person, which includes your airfare, transfer, hotel, and all you can eat and drink. Make it a family and friends reunion in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Flights available from all U.S. cities, Canada, Trinidad, and Guyana. For rates, date, and more info, call Globespan at 212-243-0865. In Canada, call 647-557-62200. In Trinidad, call Emeralds at 645-1604. And in Guyana, 227-1701, or visit us at travelspan.com. Looking for a reliable contractor? Look no further. Call Singh's Construction today. At Singh's Construction, they can cover all your jobs, interior and exterior. We cover painting, bathrooms, kitchen, doors, windows, tiles, brick, decks, flooring, and concrete. Call Naresh Singh today for your free quote at 9.
Folks, the Nest Restaurant is the place to dine for Guyanese and Caribbean dishes. It is the best restaurant in Queens, the staff is courteous, and Dave the owner is always there to welcome you. So for a memorable dining experience, visit the Nest Restaurant located at 12717 101 Avenue, South Richmond Hill. Go and make a reservation today, or takeout, call 718-847-4.
Welcome back to all our listeners. Here we are at Globespan, the Fair and Balanced Network. Tonight we have Mr. Timothy Tucker, the president of the Guyana Chambers, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Tucker, let me just ask you a quick question before Charles jumps in. You said this job is a full-time job. It keeps you very busy. And you have a private company. Why did you take it?
I wanted to, I can tell you how I got into the chamber. So back in 2016, it's 2015, I was doing a government project between 2015 and 2016. It lapped between it's 2015 actually, because it was in the I was doing the project and it was in the transition between the two governments. And I completed my job, my contract, and I couldn't get paid. And it was in great. It was a particular person. I don't want to call his name, but is part of an agency, and I had to go to the government. And of course, the government changed, and the new government came in, and I was trying to get the money that was owed to me, and I was battling back and forth everywhere with this. And I went all the way to the ombudsman, who reviewed the entire thing, called everybody in, the then ombudsman, former Justice Winston Moore. And we went through the entire thing, and Justice Moore even ordered them to pay. He wrote the Prime Minister, he wrote everyone to say I needed to be paid. I did my work, and so forth. They still did not adhere to it. So I think it was the vice president of the chamber at that point in time, Dr. Vishnu Durga said to me, join the GCCI and we'll lobby for you. And I did. I joined the GCCI, and the first thing I did as a member of GCCI was write a complaint to the secretariat. And I think it was within 3 months, I got a check. I got 90% of my money. The chamber lobbied for me. And I felt compelled. I was amazed. I got into the chamber. I was able to network. I was able to sit at the table with businessmen that, I grew up my whole life admiring at the way that they do business, and of course the way that they conducted business. And I was able to sit at the table with them. I was able to have conversations with them and learn from them. I was able to participate in a business community that was nourishing and helped to grow me. A lot of the things that I learned in business, I've never been to business school, but a lot of the things that I've learned about business and I've learned about Guyana and everything in Guyana was through the chamber. And of course, one thing led to the next. I was on the executive of the chamber. I served, and everybody said, listen, you need to go through the ranks and become president of the chamber. I did. I've been elected to my positions every time, and I've been elected unopposed both times. And in that, it's growing me. I have a very good team at my business that supports me. I got a good family that supports me as well. And that, of course, the chamber is growing, and I continue to grow, even sitting at the private sector commission, dealing with national trade issues, sitting at different various meetings, NACEN, pre-COTED. You learn a lot. And of course, what you learn, what you do is all dependent on what you put in. And I've chosen to put in the time, and I've learned. And that's what I did. And I generally encourage anybody. Don't worry. I mean, it's pure, and I should say utter rubbish that people try to make the private sector organizations such as GCCI a political thing and tell people not to join it because it's a political body. You can't do better. You can't do anything else but learn from these organizations. And that is what young people, young businesses, young entrepreneurs, and so this is where you go to learn. If you go to any country in the world and you talk to many major businessmen, they tell you they're part of a chamber of commerce in their community. I know I've been to Houston. I've met the Greater Houston Partnership. I've met the bilateral chamber out of Houston. We've met a group out of New York. It's all London. We've met the Caribbean Council. I've spoken the Caribbean Council everywhere else. And the thing is, the first thing any major organization does when it touches down in Guyana is contact the Chamber of Commerce, because they recognize the chambers of commerces in any country to be where businesses happen, where they get to network, where they get to meet, even if the person that you want isn't there, the Chamber of Commerce will have access or knows exactly where direction to point you in. So it is a no-brainer to think that to join in the chamber. It's something that you would definitely choose to be part of. And I'm sorry that I didn't join the chamber years before I did.
How long have you been in the chamber as an executive member of the Chamber of Commerce?
As I said, I've been an executive member of the chamber. On the EMC, I've been on the EMC. This is my 5.5 years. I've been on the council, which is the board of the chamber, for 6.5 years.
Okay. So you were there in Apnou's time.
Yeah.
And now you're here with the PPs 1.5 years, they're going on 2 years now. Which government responded to the Chamber of Commerce in the most congenial way?
I can say that in the initial days when I was at the chamber and we had interactions with the previous government, the first year or so, it was good, and then it suddenly went. It suddenly disappeared. This was under Dr. Durga. I think it started when the chamber was against the parking meter. And then things started to change. For maybe about 3 years, 4 years, we wrote President Granger trying to have a meeting. He refused to meet with us. But we had a great relationship. We'd always meet with Minister Harmon. We met with Dominic Gaskin, was always in the chamber. We had a couple of other ministers that were always there. When we had events, they would participate, very supportive of the work of the chamber. Then this government, now we have a former president of the chamber who is a government minister. So we have a very good working relationship. And I think because you have that input from the business community within this government, because a lot of persons who were part of the government were actually from the business community. You have a very good relationship and they understand the needs of the business community. So you have a much better working relationship with this government. Of course, you have one government that is, under the previous government, we did see a rise in the public sector, a growth in the public sector in terms of the employment. Government was doing more business. I haven't seen a massive change, drop off of that as yet, but generally, private sector is being supportive at this point in time. As I said, we're here as a private sector to do business. So whoever's accommodating, we're ready to do business with them. As I said, the MOU yesterday, I had my reservations with because I've been burnt previously with Dr. Rowley, but he's ready to do business with the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and the local private sector, and we're ready to do business with him.
Just quickly, would you mind telling us who was the minister that was the president of the Chamber of Commerce?
Oh, Minister Deodat Indar.
Okay. Charles, over to you.
Mr. Tucker, you mentioned you have a secretariat and you have an executive director. Who is the executive director there now?
Richard Rambaran. He's been an executive director since 2017.
Okay, and I think he lectures at UG or as well?
Yes, he's a lecturer at University of Guyana, the economic department.
Okay, does the secretariat knows how many business operates within the Georgetown area? And is your membership for Georgetown only or across the country?
No, but I would have said in my introduction that the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce is a national body. It can we accept members from across the country, and we even have a category that for associate members, so associations can also join the chamber. But we generally say to associations want to join the chamber that the place for you to be is not under the chamber, but you can sit at the table with the chamber, the private sector commission. That's the right, that's the purpose of the commission.
But does a secretariat knows how many business operates within the Georgetown area, let's say?
So what happens? No, there's a lack of data within the whole entire realm of Guyana. So because of the lack of data, now the Gcci has been lobbying or trying for a number of years to find the funding to do a private sector capacity survey, which would answer a lot of those questions. We don't, because those questions have been asked by incoming trade missions all the time. And there's a lack of that, and of course there's a lack of data. I know there's somewhat of a collection of data, ad hoc, a little bit here, a little bit there. I can tell you the Gcci is 620 businesses. The closest association underneath us may be the Guyana Manufacturers Association with 200 and something, right? But for instance, the Center of Local Business Development has 3,000 businesses in their register. But you got to understand the Center of Local Business Development, it registers everyone.
One way maybe to start that research you're doing, maybe is the Inland Revenue Department, if they can give you the names of those businesses who filed a tax return, maybe just the name, you don't have to get the details, but maybe that might be a way to start. Mr. Tucker, there are reports that some businesses in Guyana really underpay their staff way below the the minimum wage that government set out. Is the chamber looking at that? Because at the end of the day, the employees' welfare is also important in any business.
Listen, the chamber is, and I can answer that question for you. The chamber is supportive of the suggested increase in the private sector minimum wage, and I can also tell you that very few members of the GCCI pay that minimum wage. For understand the private sector is the local private sector is businesses. We grow businesses. We look to make money. And if we're looking to make money, you want to hire the best talent to do so. So that's why we have to pay more than government, because sometimes we take the best talent from government. We take the best talent that is there in the market. So we have to pay the best salaries. So it's not a case where you may have the small shops or those stores that we've heard of that exploit. They are not within our membership. We don't have a large amount of stores on the streets of Georgetown that are members. We have businesses. Our sectors are cut up. You can see, we are heavy on the services side, manufacturing, IT, security, and those sort of things. So it's a very broad area. We do have retail businesses. We do have wholesale businesses. But as I said, the GCCI has one of the best and the strongest code of conduct of any one of a private sector organization. It's actually on the OAS website as one of the better code of conducts. And we're now working with the UN to strengthen it, to really make sure that we capture some of the SDGs.
As you travel across Guyana, Mr. Tucker, you see the proliferation of Chinese business. Are the Chinese joining the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, we've had Chinese businessmen that sat on the council of the GCCI, and a lot of them, they have a Guyanese registered business. And a lot of them are Guyanese. You remember, we all came from someplace. The only people that actually you can say we came and met here are the Amerindians, right? Everybody else came from somewhere.
I agree. You mentioned financing being a problem always a challenge. Are the banks member of the GCCI?
All the banks, I believe, except Citizen Bank.
And you work, so a business owner who member of GCCI can actually approach the bank through the GCCI to get competitive loans. Is that something that you guys work with?
Well, we don't facilitate the competitive loans. Every bank will assess the member of the chamber in a way that they would assess the general public, I assume. Yeah,
definitely.
But of course, because the process of joining the chamber, right? Joining the chamber, you fill an application, but you also have to submit your national insurance, your business national insurance scheme number, and you have to submit your GRA TIN certificate. So because of that, and of course, really and truly, it's compliance you have to provide, and you also have to submit if you don't have a recommender, you'd have to submit a business, a company profile. That the chamber, the secretariat, does a background check on all the businesses and the owners of the businesses. And they, of course, then prize the council who votes on whether or not we will accept you as a member. So it goes to that council meeting the last Thursday in every month. Actually, our council meeting will be Tuesday, Wednesday coming because Thursday is a holiday, and we would approve some more membership. Recently, I can tell you, we had went with our small business, National Small Business Week. We had about 40 something businesses that registered with the chamber, because to encourage small businesses, we actually give them a discount. And when we give them that discount, GT&T paid the discounted price for all of those businesses that were part of our National Small Business Week. So we're bringing them in so that we can mentor and grow and help grow them.
So you mentioned you're the president for the last 1.5 years. How many new members have you brought in under your stewardship as president?
Over 200.
Oh, excellent. Now tell us some of the great success story of GCI.
Which one of the great success stories?
You know this.
GCCI has a number of great success stories. I think our championing of local content is one of our major success stories, because without the GCCI and without this aggressive push for local content, and it wasn't a haphazard push, we the then executive and council of the chamber back in 2017 went on a mission, outbound mission to Newfoundland and Labrador, where we learned about local content, and where we came back and we decided this is what we needed to grow in the oil and gas sector, much to the pushback of everyone. I don't think there was anybody. There's some within the private sector didn't even understand the concept, and I, for one, I didn't go on that mission, but I wasn't fully aware of it until it was explained to me, and then they had a return mission by the newfies, as we call them, and they went through the whole process with us. Same thing with Aberdeen and Grampian. Same thing when we went to the Offshore Technology Conference. For the first time, everyone said to us, local content, local content, local content. And we started to lobby heavily. Richard, our executive director at that time, and the president of the chamber wrote a draft policy and submitted that to government. We've met, that's a long story. How much times we've consulted, met with different ministers. We were there when it was with Raphael. We met with Raphael. I remember I ended up chairing that meeting, and we pushed for local content with Raphael. And then it switched from Raphael to Dominic. We pushed with Dominic, went through all the processes again, and then it moved to Mark Bino, and then we pushed with Mark again, and then the government changed, and we pushed with the new government. And then they brought the first draft. We did consultations. They come up with the first draft policy, consultations again. We give them some time, and then we give them some time because they said that they would have pushed it out in a certain time. After they did it, at that time, we continued to lobby, and the president assured us before the end of the year, and we pushed and pushed and pushed till we got it. That's why we were so present in the sign-ins. I think it's one of many success stories of the chamber, and I can assure you, the chamber going back, I can remember meeting Mr. Eddie Monishwar, who told us the power of the GCCI back in the early days when they shut the entire commerce, shut all the ports down, because the then British Guyana government was raising taxes by 2%, and the GCCI shut the entire commerce of Georgetown down, or British Guyana. So you have many stories going back from there, going back for independence, going back to democracy. You got the fight for democracy on many different occasions. You're going forward to the GCCI lobbying parking meters, fighting for the parking meters, against the parking meters because of a very, very bad lopsided contract that we thought was and a contract that was very harsh for the business community. We were never against parking meters. We were against that model that they were using. And of course, there are some of our other success stories is just our networking, our growth of businesses, our growth of great initiatives.
I'm glad I'm sure you have a lot more. And you talk about Raphael. Was the GCCI invited to be part of the negotiating team when the PSA was negotiated?
We didn't. We read about it in the papers like everyone else. No, we weren't.
Everybody else. Interesting. Dr. Rose?
Yes, Mr. Tucker, now we're going to get to the meat of this discussion. Does the GCCI support the renegotiation of the oil contract?
No.
Why?
because I wouldn't want my contract to be renegotiated because I become successful. It is a case where, as a business, listen, there's two answers to that question, and you know that. There's a question to be answered as a Guyanese citizen, and then there is the question that you're asking me as president of the chamber. As president of the chamber, I don't think any businessman would want, you could imagine somebody in the gold mining industry went and developed a piece of land somewhere deep in the interior, spent billions of dollars to develop there, hit a ton of gold, and then the government says, you know what, we want a little more than you think. It's like, you buy your house and you buy a piece of land and you're growing good cassava on it and plenty cassava, and if suddenly the government says, we want a greater tariff on your cassava. No, we believe in the sanctity of contract. You have to, anything that interferes or that has the potential to interfere with how a foreign direct investment and international community perceives doing business in Guyana is detrimental to the business community as a whole. And we must recognize that. Even though we may disagree. Now, the greatest opportunity to renegotiate that contract was lost in 2016. In 2029, we should have another opportunity to do so, because the exploration agreement should be up. The extension that was granted in 2016, which is because the contract was expiring in 2019, and it's extended to 2029. I believe somewhere, I can be wrong, but I believe that there will be an opportunity sometime around then, based on the fact that we now move from 2016, where there were only, when that contract was renegotiated, was one oil find. And then suddenly after that renegotiation, there were the announcement of 3 oil finds. That you have and now there are 33 oil finds, with more going and more drilling happening. I believe that you have a great opportunity sometime in the future to do that. I just hope that the mistake isn't repeated, where we go blindly again. You're going to you go into a big fight with a pencil.
Now, here's the discussion that I gather from people there, is that a foreign company is given more leeway in Guyana and most on the developed countries than local companies. They said that it being a local company with that contract, the government would have forced negotiations on that local company. Do you believe that?
No, I can't say if it was a local company, the government would have forced negotiation. I've lived my life with seeing bullyism, and I've always been one to stand up against bullies. So I could imagine if it was a local company and the government was forcing a negotiation, I'd be the first person to be on the street picketing against whichever government. But I can't say that's the case. I've never seen it happen in the gold sector, so I can't say that it's so. Right. Of course, you can safely say it's not the same equation, right? You're looking at chalk and cheese. But at the end of the day, yes, I agree. I think that more. When I say I agree on the fact that foreign companies all seems to get more than locals. Is it because they're coming with a larger investment than locals? Maybe so, right? But I believe that more needs to be done in support of local businesses at this point in time. I think that it's needed. We have to grow. We have to have more big companies. We can't just have 2 conglomerates in Guyana, which is your Bank ZIH and DDL. We need to build more companies. We need a more vibrant stock exchange. We need incentives to create a junior stock exchange, to create a vibrant stock market, to raise capital outside of the banking system. We need we need more access to finance, broader access to finance. We may possibly need an investment bank to invest in Guyanese businesses, right? So that we can compete, so that we can grow, so that we can develop Guyanese businesses that we will not need foreign companies to come in, so that you can have additional businesses that are going to really come in later on. Guyanese businesses, sorry, that is going to create and grow up to become big businesses. We may not be ExxonMobil is 100 years old, right? It's it's one of the oldest forest oil company. They've created it. They've basically mastered it. But they've had a facilitating environment in their country that has created or helped them to be molded into one of the largest companies in the world. It was so large at one time that it had to be broken up into 5 other companies, and which 3 of them are mega companies at this point in time. So we need to facilitate the development of companies or conglomerates within the Guyana or Guyanese conglomerates that can compete worldwide.
Now, the retirement age in Guyana is 55. In Trinidad it's 62, and a number of other countries it's 62 in the Caribbean. Would you support an increase in the retirement age from 55 to 62, the GCCI?
I think that's something. I mean, listen, I think 55 is too young to retire. I mean, a lot of people, but the nice thing about it is that I have a lot of the people who retire from the public sector at 55 come into the private sector, and they're young entrepreneurs at 55. So it also, it doesn't have people long into sometimes you have people too long in the public sector, and who are growing old in the public sector, and sometimes we've seen that happen, that they bring back people and have them on contracts, and really, a young, vibrant public sector would be better. Of course, I would always try to support a young, vibrant private sector. But I think that's something that we really need to look at, whether or not 55. I mean, just off the cuff, I would say 55 sounds too young. I don't believe that. I mean, I would like to retire at 55, providing that I've been able to make a life that I can retire at 55. But then, if I know a lot of people that started life at 55. We've looked at these stories of Warren Buffett, who really kicked off his financial geniuses at about 58.
Now, cost of living is on the rise, not only in Guyana, around the world, but in Guyana it's really shot up very, very high. What is the GCCI recommendation to help the poor in Guyana stem the cost of living?
We have made there are a number of things that we would have lobbied for. Of course, you see a lot of the removal of some of the taxes, the lowering of the taxes on fuel, but some of it is beyond our control. You got a multitude of things that are created. So you have a hot economy in Guyana at this point in time. The government is spending heavily on infrastructure. Private sector is spending heavy to build out its own infrastructure. You have and then you have the oil and gas industry spending a significant amount of money on infrastructure. So with all of that, there's a short supply chain in Guyana. Now, we've had issues, delays in shipping. I've just spoken to a shipping company the other day that says, listen, their container, their ship arrives in Trinidad with 10,000 containers on it, and the ship that comes to Georgetown can only carry 3,000 containers, but they have 2 ships a week. And one ship goes in with 10,000. So there's approximately 4,000 containers leaving back in Trinidad. I can say a portion of containers are left back in Trinidad, because the 10,000, not all the containers are coming to Guyana. But that is an issue. We've been getting complaints from the local private sector. So you got a shipping issue. Even though you have a global shipping issue, you have a regional shipping issue. Then you also have issues within the other parts of the sector, the private sector, that is also, and of course, we have a high cost of finance within the local private sector. So when you have government contracts, oil and gas contracts, and they're taking a significant amount of time to be paid, the cost of borrowing, applying to those things, it carries the cost of production all the way up. And that now, in turn, is really causing the rising cost of living. Globally, you see inflation in the US at about 8.5%. You see inflation everywhere else. Guyana is no exception. Yes, we've now become, I mean, if we grow more, if we were producing more, right, then the possibility lies that we've been able to lower that cost. But all our inputs, a lot of our inputs, so whatever we're doing is from overseas, right? My field, I'm in the pest control field. The only input that I have that is homegrown is the workers, the chemical. Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Tucker, let me just go. I got two questions for you, but time is very short. We just got about, what, 5-6 minutes more.
Okay, go ahead.
What is the GCCI stance on energy? Does it support solar, wind, or the Amelia Falls project?
All of the above. We support, so we support wind, we support an energy mix. We support wind, solar, the gas to shore project, and we support the Amelia Falls project. Anything that lowers the cost of electricity will have the support of the GCCI. That is a position that we have set for a number of years.
My final question to you. Do you think the people should share directly in the oil revenue by getting direct cash?
You see, you have an issue there, right? One of the issues you have there is that direct cash payout is going to cause inflation. Have you seen that in the U.S. with the stimulus the other day? So that was a continuous stimulus. Yes, I think that we can put things in place there's a greater need. Let me put it this way. There's a greater need for social benefits that can really, and I mean social benefit, everything. The quality of life index in Guyana needs to improve. We're not keeping our, we're not retaining our people fast enough. It's stabilized, and I can tell you, this budget, and if it's one thing I acknowledge in this last budget, was that there was a direct attempt to improve the quality of life within the last budget. The water situation, hospitals, transportation, access, so much infrastructure projects that it was definitely an attempt to improve the quality of life. People call it a private sector budget. I don't call it a private sector budget. I call it a quality of life budget because that's what I see when I looked at it. Okay.
But you said that if they give them the money, it will cause inflation. Inflation right now is jumping. And the people make money. But that's an argument discussion for another time.
Yeah.
So that argument don't buy into the economic realm of real.
So what I would suggest, right, is, and I've been saying this on my personal Facebook page. I've said that I believe that ideally, government should make these companies public companies. So Guyanese, so even if you want to now create a company, like for instance, they should have taken Gaisuco public. They could take the Marriott Hotel public. They can take a lot of the other agencies that we have here, Guyana Water Incorporated, take it public. Let the shares be publicly traded. Guyanese, then, if you choose, you can allocate a certain amount of shares to every Guyanese. And when the company does well, Guyanese get dividends paid out to them. Those are, say if you want to do that with an oil company, so you can have an oil company, you could create an oil company, and you can also do that. Or you can take some of the revenue from the oil company, from the NRF, and you can create an investment, a local investment bank that can help to boost, create entrepreneurs and upskill people. Okay,
All right, I know
Charles.
we're out of time, Mr. Tucker, and you have done remarkable well. I know you say you're not in favor of renegotiating a contract, but quickly, is it a fair contract?
No, it's not a fair contract.
So shouldn't they pay taxes? Shouldn't our company pay taxes like all of your companies do in GCCI?
So some companies in GCCI have tax holidays. When
No
they
tax
came into-
holiday, but this one is no tax for the life of the contract.
As I said, so I mean, when that whole contract was signed back in 1999, that was one thing. We lost the opportunity, and I agree. You know, but without this development, without this oil find, would we have the money to do this kind of development? Where would have been if we didn't have Exxon? Or let's say Exxon decides you're going to negotiate the contract and they're pulling out. So you end up like how they pulled out of Russia.
But you know they won't do that to Guyana. Guyana, it's too lucrative for them.
You pulled out of Venezuela. They got thrown out of Venezuela.
Yeah, they got thrown out, but they didn't pull out. But Mr. Tucker,
Right.
Quickly.
And Venezuela is what, 30 times the oil that we found here?
Yeah, that's true. They're one of the largest deposits, and I agree. You mentioned the 10,000 containers coming to Trinidad because deep water. If that ship can come to Guyana, do we have the capacity to handle 10,000 containers in Port Georgetown?
You don't have that capacity right now, but you have a development that is going on that can actually that should be able to handle that, and that should be there by 2025, I believe. I know they're slated to finish the first stage by end of 2023, but you have that coming at Breeding Hoop.
Okay. Mr. Tucker, it's been a great pleasure to have you for this 1.5 hour. You've been incredible. Is there anything you want to tell us in closing?
I want to thank you all. Thanks for the questions. I hope I was informative for the rest of the public. I hope they got a better insight to the GCCI and what we do. And I want to say that, feel free to contact me anytime. Feel free to engage the chamber, join the chamber, be part of it. We have to grow Guyana, and it's all hands on deck. It's one Guyana. I can tell you that one Guyana slogan came out of the GCCI pre-elections in 2020 because we felt that it was needed some sort of harmony going into the election to avoid any falling out, and we pushed it, and we were happy to see that the government adopted it when they got into power, and we support a one Guyana policy. So that's all, even those in the diaspora. I hope to see both of you guys in Georgetown with some kind of business or some kind of business support. Join the chamber, and there's a wealth of knowledge that is needed within the private sector that is available from the diaspora. And I'm looking forward for you and the others in the diaspora engaging us and participating in the growth of Guyana.
As soon as I can travel without a vaccine, I'll be there, Mr. Tucker. So. Dr. Rose, anything in closing?
So I just want to say that I think the retirement age should be increased to 62 years old, and I think we need better Wi-Fi services in Guyana. Apart from that, the government is fully aware that they're supposed to increase the wages of teachers, police, nurses, and so forth. But having said all those things, it will take time to achieve them. There's no question about that. And as much pressure anyone puts on this government, they're there only for what, less than 2 years. And I think they're doing a remarkable good job in those past 18, 19 months.
I agree. It's really the private sector itself is struggling to keep up the pace that the government is moving at.
Right, that is true.
And I think the government has really done a remarkable job. Without, we're not supporting or against the government, but I think the government is really on the right projection, and I think trajectory they will do very well, and with support from the private sector.
Yeah, on most of the issues, they are on the right trajectory. Some, they have to maybe retool it or take a second look at them, but that's happening in every government, in every industry. Nothing is.
So, Mr. Tucker, thank you again for your time, and we want to wish you and the chamber all the best and great success. That all the private business in Guyana will be part of the chamber. So you'll have a more united body, and more people there is more strength also in that body. So we want to wish you and your team all the best. And to our viewers out there, thank you so much. To Lakram and to all our viewers, thank you. God bless our great country called Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you.